welcome to my very first podcast. This is the Felicity Yarn Studio podcast, and my name is Zoe. I'm so happy to have you all here with me today, and we are here to talk about knitting, primarily. Eventually there may be some talk about crochet, and I do also dye yarn. I have a small Etsy store under the same name of Felicity Yarn Studio. But also, if you're interested, you can find me around the internet as Zoe Nichols, Knitchols. See what I did there? That's on Instagram and on Ravelry. And yeah, so I decided to go ahead and start this podcast to be able to go into depth a little bit more about most of my knitting projects, because I don't know, I just feel like I have more to say than what I can put out there on Instagram mainly. But yeah, so this will be about knitting for the most part, and I may also chronicle some things like work in the garden around our house. We bought a new house recently, well, within the last year and a half, but it needs some updates, so I thought that this would be a great place to chronicle some of those things as well. It'll be a very small portion, and if you're not interested in that type of thing, you know, I'll try to direct you one way or the other as far as that goes. But anyway, yeah, so like I said, I'm a knitter. I also dye yarn. I have been knitting for somewhere around 12 years or so. I think it was around 2006, 2007 when I learned how to knit. The funny thing is that my younger sister Naomi, who you'll probably hear me refer to here on the podcast multiple times, she taught herself how to knit, or maybe a friend showed her in high school. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, she was the first one to learn. I wanted to know when we lived together back in the day, and so she taught me how to knit. And then a few years later, one of my aunts wanted to learn, so me and Naomi showed her, I think, together, or maybe I did, I don't remember exactly. And then eventually some of our other aunts picked it up, and my mom wanted to learn how, so she tried knitting, she tried crochet. Neither one of them really took for her, but finally we figured out she enjoyed loom knitting. So our family has learned how to knit in reverse. It's just amusing because, you know, most of the time it's the thing that gets passed down from generation, and it's getting passed up the generations for us. So yeah, so that's a little bit of background. I live with my husband here in the foothills of North Carolina. We are near Charlotte, we are near Asheville, we're kind of in between and kind of the suburbs, rural area. And like I said, we bought a slightly older home built in the late 70s, but we really love it out here. I've spent most of my time on the eastern part of the state in North Carolina, so I do miss, you know, the coastal region a little bit, but the mountains are really gorgeous out here. And I do have 3 cats. I would not be surprised if one of them tries to make an appearance at some point. In fact, that crinkling noise is one of them trying to stand on a bag right now. So, why don't we get into some knitting? I think we'll start with finished objects first. And let's see. So one of the things that I finished this summer, something that I've actually knit this pattern before. I made a second dotted race shawl. And let me rearrange it. So I was going through my cedar trunk with all my shawls and sweaters and things at the beginning of this, or end of spring, beginning of summer, and I noticed I had a hole, an unintended hole, in my dotted race shawl. It's one of my go-tos. I wear it a lot. I like that it is big and comfortable, or, you know, I can wrap it around myself nicely. And also related to that, last year I bought an advent calendar from the yarn dyer Artemis yarns. I see you, cat. You can be quiet. And I held on to that kit for a while, mostly because it was so gorgeous that I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And eventually I decided it would make a really gorgeous faded dotted rays, because she sent a like custom fade as your advent calendar if you ordered one from her. So I did not use all 24 colors, but I did use a good chunk of them, about 18 or 19 if I remember correctly. And just a side note, if you're ever interested, I am generally pretty good about putting information up on my Ravelry page. So I'm pretty sure that I put the color order that I did this fade in. And I apologize for the lighting today. It's a little bit overcast outside. I think we're supposed to get some thunderstorms later on. I did my best, but I didn't really want to put like overhead lights on in here. But yeah, this is my faded dotted rays with Artemis yarns, and I absolutely adore these colors. I think this is a pretty good introduction to the colors that I tend to be into, all in one project. So we started up here and you work back and forth, and I faded into these like blues and greens, back into some kind of blues, and then down into that like neon peach color, which is like my absolute favorite, and then into, you see a little bit more of it down here, this like blurply purpley blue. I love it. I'll put it on real quick. But yeah, so I actually a few nights ago I finally got around to weaving in all the ends, because you know it's faded, which means generally I was working with two colors at one color per row, but I was either striping or kind of alternating between the two colors as I went. So yeah, that's what it looks like on. So let me try to show y'all some of that. I think starting up at the very top, like this would have been all one color, and then you can kind of see where I started to fade in, like right here, and then through here. Again, I kind of alternated. Eventually the rows got long enough to where I had to, it was just every other row. I would have preferred to make it a little more randomized. A good reference for fading, to me at least, to make it look more natural, is either the Saturate shawl or the How I Roll socks, both by Westknits by Mara Catherine Briner, I think her name is. Her method of fading doesn't involve stripe one color, do two rows in another color. It's more randomized, because that's how things occur in nature. So I really like applying kind of that technique to fades or gradients whenever I'm knitting with those. So yeah, this is my dotted rays. Like I said, I love it. I know that I will get lots and lots of use out of it this fall and winter and beyond. I haven't blocked it yet. Like I said, I just finished weaving it in the ends, so I will actually probably get around to that today. Yeah, actually I think I was showing you the wrong side. This is the right side, I believe. I don't know, it doesn't really matter with this one, because with it faded like that, they both kind of look the same. So Dotted Rays by Westknits, yarn by Artemis yarns. And if you are interested in an advent calendar, I'm going to talk about this towards the end of the video. I do have some in my shop in Felicity Yarn Studio. All right, so that's finished object number 1. All right, so my next finished object is a pair of socks. And this is just a pair of vanilla self-striping socks the yarn is from Muststash yarns. It is one of their must match skeins. So you get 2 50-gram skeins that are dyed to match perfectly. And then I also had in my stash, when I dye yarn, I don't like to waste anything, so I like to take the water that I rinse my utensils in and put it aside, and then just throw some minis in to soak up that leftover dye. So I call them rinse waters. So I had 2 rinse waters in my stash that match these colors exactly. So this green for the heel and toe, and then the color on the, did I say heel and toe? Cuff and toe. And then the heel matches this kind of stripe right here, which is this really pale peachy pink color. So yeah, I really love these. I haven't blocked them. I probably won't block them formally. I just threw them on here to show y'all, and I'll probably just wear them and then wash them and throw them back on the blockers when I'm done wearing them. And with the 2 minis that I had and the leftovers, I most definitely have enough to get a second pair of socks out of this yarn. I have a big foot for a woman, apparently. Well, not apparently. I knew this for a while now. I always have to do the 72 stitch size. I, for the most part, knit all of my socks on size US 1. I believe it's 2.25 millimeter needles. And I prefer using the 9-inch circulars. I know not everybody's crazy about them, but that is what works best for me. So I actually did those 2 at a time because you get the 2 50-gram minis, and let me tell you, 2 at a time is life-changing. No matter how you go about doing them, it really, really is. And I'll get into some more socks later on. So yeah, those are my most recent finished objects within the last month or 2. Actually, the socks I finished last week sometime. So let's move on to some works in progress. So, first one I want to talk about, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I have advent calendars this year, but I did one last year as well in my shop. And as a yarn dyer, I think a lot of people struggle with this. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I struggle with wanting to knit with my own hand-dyed yarn, but also I love to buy yarn. I mean, who doesn't love to buy yarn? And I already have a not substantial stash, but I mean, I have a couple tubs of yarn. Don't we all? But yeah, so I dyed up these advent calendars, and to be perfectly honest, after working on them for a few months last year, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work. I just didn't feel like looking at the yarn for a long time after that. And finally, I, dug around and I came across them again, and I was like, you know what, it's time. So I cast on about a month ago a Full of Minis hat, which is a pattern specifically written for advent calendars. I actually think it is written for 5-gram minis, and my kit involved 20-gram minis, but there's all kinds of them out there. But the pattern is by Barbara of Knitting I Love. Don't remember her last name. But yeah, it's a really fun knit. If you like welts. I apparently do not like welts, but I really love the design and the look of this hat. I think it's super fun. Now my only concern is It's a little tight on my head. Let me see if I can squeeze this on real quick. I don't know. I generally like my hats to be, let me get up here, a little less fitted, a little bit looser. Maybe I have a big noggin, I don't know. So that being said, it is superwash merino nylon blend. Your basic sock yarn, 75/25. So I do think with a soak or a steam, it will grow a little bit, if nothing else. I think it'll be okay. And if not, I have 2 nieces. I'm sure one of them would love it. Only problem with that is, if you make one for one niece, you have to make another one for the other niece. And while I love this hat, I honest to God do not see me knitting another one anytime soon. So we'll see. And the only other thing about this pattern that I wanted to mention is the pattern calls for you to make a pom-pom with colors 23 and 24 of your advent calendar. Sorry, cat decided to come make appearance down here. So you only have colors 1 through 22 in the hat, and then the last 2 are on top and a pom-pom. I just want to have all 24 colors in the hat, so I'm just gonna do like 2 extra regular welts before I start the crown decreases. Oh, and just to show you where the colors are going, let me see, how does this go? I don't even remember what order my advent colors go from last year. Oops. So the next 2 will be like this. Once again, some neon peach coral. So then that is those. I adore these colors. And they were one-of-a-kind colors for the advent calendar, but there's a couple that I just really love and I might have to throw into my shop full time. So then after those 2 will come these 2 purples. Let me try that one. And then the last 2. So yeah, I have a little like faux fur pom-pom that I'm gonna throw on there instead of making one out of the leftovers, because actually I'm saving my leftovers for another long-term project that I'm going to talk about on another day. So yeah, that is my full of minis hat. I think that brings us to our next project, which I need to finish that hat so I can get those needles back for this current project, which is living in a bag that I picked up last year at SAF, which is the Southeastern Animal Fiber Festival, and that's held in Asheville, and it's kind of the largest festival in this area in the Southeast. It's always the weekend after Rhinebeck, and it's kind of the South's answer to Rhinebeck. There's a lot of the same vendors. It's a pretty big event. I really enjoyed it last year. So I'm going back this year. This year I'm gonna go for 2 days because last year I went once, or only on the Friday, and definitely felt like I missed a few things. But again, this bag is from Twist Fiber Studio. I think they're somewhat local. I don't remember off the top of my head. And living inside of that bag is my Darkwater sweater. Man, the light is super dark in here today. And I am knitting this out of some of my own hand-dyed yarn. Really love this one. This is on an MCM base. I can't remember the exact fiber content. I'll pop it on the screen. So the color work is being done in my colorway called Peachberry, and the main body is in a colorway called Blue Jean Baby. And the Blue Jean Baby is like this denim-y blue with blue and black speckles. And Peachberry is just this lovely glowing peach with speckles of blue and yellow on there. Oh, I do have it in here. Okay. I don't know how great the light is today. So yeah, I just love these colors together. I love a top-down colorwork yoke sweater. Anything top-down, especially anything knit in one piece, is the way to go in my opinion. And let's see. I started this back in January. We're gonna sidetrack here for a second. This past March, me, Naomi, my mom, and my aunt, the one who I taught how to knit, we all took the trip of a lifetime this year and went to Edinburgh in Scotland for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which was absolutely amazing, as you can guess. So anyway, I started this in January, and I had kind of wanted to take it with me on the trip. But you know, I got like maybe to like here in the color work in January, and just for whatever reason wasn't feeling it. So I put it aside. And then when we got back, I just like flew through the rest of the yoke, flew through the body. And so the body has been done since like April. And it's just been sitting in my stash. And then a few weeks ago, I finally got around to picking up one of the sleeves. I started doing magic loop because my needle was on the hat. I'm not the greatest fan of magic loop personally. And I'm afraid my gauge is gonna be slightly tighter than it is in just like knitting in the round. So I could push on with the magic loop, but I really think I'm gonna try to knock that hat out in the next day or two. That way I can finish these sleeves. Because I'd really like to enter this into our county fair. There's a really huge county fair here where we live, like much bigger than the ones that I have been used to back where we used to live. And so I want to enter just because I'm really proud of this, because I dyed the yarn. I did really well, I think, on my color work. I caught all my floats, which is a new thing for me. I alternated my skeins. I used the helical knitting method, which if you're not familiar, I'll try to leave a link to a tutorial, the one that I used. But yeah, it's just something that I'm really proud of overall, even though I'm not even done with it yet. So I'd really like to finish it and enter that, which is at the end of September, I believe. Sleeves don't take that long. I should be able to knock it out pretty quickly and get that entered. So yeah, that's something that I'd like to have done in the next few weeks. And that is my Darkwater sweater. So let's see what next. Well, since we talked about Edinburgh, I'll talk about that, my next project that relates to that. All right, so when we went to Scotland, we stayed in Edinburgh the whole time, which is fine. I would have loved to see more of the country, but I actually really enjoyed the experience of staying in one city, really immersing ourselves. And even though we stayed there for a good 7 or 8 nights, I could have spent another week there exploring all the things that the city has to offer. But anyway, back to yarn. I knew I wanted a really special natural wool, non-superwash, authentic, kind of British or I guess UK breed, rustic. That's maybe the word that I'm looking for. I knew I wanted something natural. And I kind of knew that I wanted a dark natural wool also, just because I think it's really beautiful. Just what nature can produce all on its own. So we did the full festival on, or the like main big day of the festival on Friday. We didn't attend on Saturday. Should have done that also. See, I've learned my lesson twice now. Always go both days on the yarn festival. So yeah, we came back on Sunday for the event that they have called Make Wool. And that's when they bring in some smaller vendors, some more like what's the right word? They bring in like small farms that raise their own flocks and are very hands-on in the production of their wool. So yeah, we actually really enjoyed that event. There was a lot of natural wool that was so soft. It was hard to believe that it wasn't blended with anything or hadn't been treated in any way. It was a really great experience, and I'm really glad that we went to that as well. So while we were there, I picked up, I think I had gotten 5 skeins of this. I call them wool barrels because that's what they look like to me. But here we go. And this is from a place called Croft 29. They are on the Isle of Skye. And it is Hebridean yarn. And it is a DK weight. Oh, I meant to show you the label. The label's a little beat up because it got shoved into a suitcase and flown across the ocean. But I absolutely love this. It is exactly what I was looking for. And since we couldn't actually make it to the Isle of Skye, I got yarn from the Isle of Skye instead. And for being just a kind of woolly, natural wool, and I've heard that dark wool tends to be more prickly also than, you know, your white or whatever. I don't find this itchy, or there's a tiny bit of prickle, but nothing that is unwearable. I feel it more on my elbows generally with wool than I do on my neck, I feel like. But yeah, so I picked up 5 of those. In the back of my mind, I wanted to make a like traditional cabled sweater. If I was picking up, you know, rustic wool. But I got home, I was a little short on I was very short on yardage for a cabled sweater. I still would have been short on yardage for a regular sweater or a non-cabled sweater. And so I talked to Naomi. She also felt a little about the amount of yarn that she had, so we did a joint order. And I think I picked up 3 more, so I have 8 of these. But I decided in the end to go with making a stalactite sweater, which I don't even think you can see. So yeah, I am loving this pattern. I am loving working with this yarn. For the little contrast bits, I am using some Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. This is in the Fossil colorway. I don't know if you can tell, but it is like gray mixed with some yellow and some green. It's really pretty color. It kind of has a retro feel to me. Like just in general, the color looks like very 70s to me, but I love it. I really like it paired with this dark chocolate brown, black, brown, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so again, this is Stalactites. It is from an issue of Lina magazine, or Lane, depending on where you are in the world. It is, I'm making the largest size, and at the largest size I would have had 0 ease, 0 positive ease, or 0 ease, and that's fine. I was going to be okay with that. But honestly, once I started knitting this up and I tried it on the other night, I'm going to have 2 to 3 inches of ease, which is perfectly fine with me. But yeah, I'm loving it, and I'm okay with having ease also because I plan on wearing this almost as an outer garment in the winter time. It gets cold here in the winter, but not like cold. I have another sweater kind of made out of worsted weight wool, and last winter I was able to just pull it on with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, and I was perfectly fine for going out during the day. At night it might be a little bit not quite enough, but definitely during the day it's perfectly fine here. But yeah, it is a top-down construction. Again, there's actually some interesting shaping that goes on along the neckline before you start working in the round, and then I'll need to pick up and do a collar. I think the pattern calls for like a turtleneck type collar. That's not really me. I'll probably just do some ribbing and kind of, you know, just a basic kind of collar. But yeah, I absolutely love this. I cannot wait to wear this winter. I have a feeling I'm probably going to live in this one this winter. And that, I was actually counting the rows last night. I think I missed a couple rows in this section here of just the plain. I don't care. I'm the only one who knows. I don't think it's going to be super noticeable that there's a little less distance in between those 2 rows. But this is living right now in my fringe bag. Can't remember what they called this colorway. Cranberry, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, I fell in love with this color last year, and I just had to have one. It was my Christmas present to myself. But yeah, so I'm really pleased with how this is working up. I think I want to go ahead and do the sleeves. That way I can make the body as long as I want, because gotta be honest, I am personally not into the whole cropped look, especially on myself. I don't know, it's just not flattering for me personally. I think some people can pull it off, but I generally like my sweaters to hit at minimum like mid-hip length, depending on the pattern, maybe even a little lower than that, kind of tunic-y length. It depends. This one I don't think should be tunic length, but it should definitely not be, I don't know. I think I have a somewhat longer torso than average also. So, Stalactites, Croft 29, Brooklyn Tweed. We'll go ahead and finish the next like big project. So let me start over. I'm not a monogamous knitter by any means. I generally have anywhere from like 6 to 10 projects going on at a time. I know that would make some people crazy, but that's just the way I am. That's just the way my creative process works. So I was going through all my projects the other day, and I have the 2 garments. Actually, I have another one, but I'm not talking about it today. I have the 2 garments, a couple pairs of socks, and again, some like long-term things that I pull out from time to time to work on. But I don't know, none of them were doing it for me. So I decided to cast on a shawl, because I don't know, there's just something soothing about shawl knitting to me. And let's see. I decided to cast on the Jigshawl Puzzle by Westknits. And this is where I'm at. Get this put down. I'm trying to keep this from curling on itself, but maybe like that. But yeah, this is the top, the green part. So, Jigshawl Puzzle shawl. That's a mouthful. For this, you hold 2 fingering weight yarns double for each kind of little modular section. And for this one, this like neon yellow and pink triangle section, that was the very first section. And for that, I held this skein of Ching fiber with a mini from Birch Dye Works. I used the entire mini, but that mini I believe was called Mossy Bunny. So I held that with this one, and they were very similar. The Mossy Bunny was like bare with neon yellow and some green and a little bit of pink speckles on it, and they really look nice together. So I'm really happy with that section. And I'll pop the names of the colorways on the screen because I don't have all of the labels with me right now. And so yeah, so I really like that color combination. Now, the next one was this purple, tiny little purple triangle in the middle there. And for that, I held a leftover bit of some koigu with some mohair. And that is this combination. So this koigu is something that I used along the edging of my parachutey, another Westknits project pattern that I did last year. I did like the I-cord edge around the neck and the sleeves and the bottom. And it's a sport weight held with this mohair. I think that works well together as far as trying to get that same type of fabric as the 2 fingerings held together. And then, what am I trying to say? So pattern calls for you to hold 2 fingering weights together, and there's 6, you need 6 colors for that. Just not my drink giver. And there's instructions in there for, you know, what combos to make with what. Like use AB here, use BC here, CD, you know. But honestly, I'm just kind of combining whatever I like for whatever section, because I did pull some full skeins, but then I also pulled some minis. I may pull, most of my scraps are spoken for scrappy projects, but I may pull some other things out of those to work with as well. But yeah, so that was the koigu and the mohair. Oh, and the mohair is, that is by Farmer's Daughter in the Mighty Mo base. And it's, the colorway is Elk Antler. It's just a really pretty, like, mauvey gray. It's a really gorgeous color. This would make a really pretty garment, actually, on a different base. Well, I don't know, maybe even on the mohair base. So yeah, so then that was the second one. The third section is this one. And for that section, I held Birch Dye Works again. This one right here with a like mystery mini that was gifted to me by Naomi. It may have been from the fiber seed, it may not. It didn't have a tag when she picked it up. And that is this little, this is all I have left. And it may be enough to kind of combine later on. There's another couple little triangles. I may be able to squeeze it another section out of that. So yeah, so that was the third section. Oh, and the kind of look that I'm going for with this shawl is I want it to overall be kind of pastel-y and neon-y because that's just what I love right now. But I did want to kind of have some pops thrown in of some contrast. Just what I'm picturing in my mind is like a wall of graffiti or something. Just that contrast of black against these really bright colors really makes it interesting to me. So that was section 3. Section 4 is this one up here. And this is, I'm loving this section up here. It reminds me of like lemon lime soda and stuff. So for that one, I'm holding this color from the Fiber Studio, Yarns to Die For, the Fiber Studio, and that's a local dyer here in Charlotte. And I picked this one up on the Charlotte area yarn crawl last year. I think it's getting ready to happen again this year in September. And I think this one is called Mint something. I love mint green, if you haven't noticed already. Mint green and peach are my colors right now. But I held it with this mini of the fiber seed, and that I believe is called Lime Sherbet. I love this like glowing neon green color. And the two of them held together just really, they bring each other together. This one brings this one up and this one brings this one down a little bit. So I kind of like how they meld together. And the fiber seed is also going to be at SAF again this year. So I do plan on either getting a full skein of that or a couple more minis because I really love that color. So I just started the 5th section last night, which is, you know, working off of this first triangle section here. I don't know how much you can see of that. So for this section, it calls for you to work with the one that you hold the mohair with. So actually you need a total of 8 skeins because the last one that he calls the contrast color, he actually used a bocule, I can't ever say that word, yarn held with a fingering, but I decided to do a mohair held with the fingering. My yarn's tangled. So for that, I decided to use the mohair with this beautiful skein. This is the color Angel Aura by the Songbirdery. Sorry. And this is just the most beautiful pastel mixture. I don't know, I just love it. And this color is like really hard to get your hands on. I managed to get in on a pre-order last November or December, I don't remember. And I'm really happy that I did. And it kind of has sat in my stash and I've just kind of, I don't know, nothing was ever good enough for it. So finally when I started pulling things for this shawl, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use it. So that, again, that's those two knitted up together. Now my fabric is slightly thinner than the other ones. but I'm not super worried about it. It's just a shawl. It's gonna be, again, my sofa shawl that I just throw on in the evenings. So I'm not super fussed about it. And then the rest of the colors that I kind of have pulled aside for this. I have this skein from Spun Right Round. It's one that my mom gave me for my birthday a few years ago. And I have another one that's like a darker blue with more kind of colorful speckles on it that I may also put aside for this. And this is one that I may hold with that like black charcoal-y little bit somewhere. But it would also look pretty held with some of these other colors, like this combination, because this one also has a little bit of black. So I have that. I didn't pull the other Spun Right Round skein up here. Oh, and that colorway is called Sugar Pop Fizz. I have these two Koigu, which they're the same colorway. One's just been balled up. Like I said, I love a good peach coral. That's probably something that I picked up off of Jimmy Bean's wool. I don't know, they were having a sale on it. I think they were like oopsie skeins that Jimmy Bean's wool picked up. But this is the KPPPM base, colorway P999-0140. Love it. And if that does, that's the only one that I'm kind of on the fence about if it works in this shawl. If I decide not to use it in a shawl, I'm sure I could find another use for it. But then I have a couple other little things. Oh, I have a couple minis. So these two are also from Fiber Seed that Naomi picked up for me down in Tampa, because they used to be where they dyed yarn, or where they were based. She got them at a local yarn shop though. But the brown is called Cinnamon, and the blue is Robin's Egg. Another Fiber Seed mini that I got, this one with the green one last year at SAF. This one is called Sunshine, and it's just a nice buttery yellow. And lastly, another Birch Dye Works mini in the colorway Devereaux. And surprise, it's peach or coral. And all of the Birch Dye Works were sent to me in a Fiber Share package from last year, I believe. But anyway, oh, the only other thing I have put aside for this shawl is some handspun yarn from Naomi. Now, obviously she's a spinner, and I would love to learn how to spin yarn also. I'm currently trying to save for a wheel. It's not going great, but we'll get there eventually. So she tends to send me a lot of her handspun, and it's not that I don't know what to do with it, but a lot of it sits for a while until the right project comes along. But also I feel like, I don't know, this by itself is like a finished object to me. It's a piece of art by itself. So I don't know. It's a little bit precious, but I think it'll work really nicely in this shawl and kind of the colors that I have going on here. And I want to say she told me it was like a heavy fingering, but honestly it looks more like DK weight to me. So I don't think I'm gonna even have to hold it with anything. If I do, I may just hold it with some of the mohair. We'll see. But that is my Jigshawl Puzzle shawl. That I'm gonna laugh every time I say that. I think that's just gonna be a thing now. So let me clean all these up. I'll insert some footage of the layout of all the skeins before I started knitting them as well, so you can kind of get an idea of the like color scheme that I'm going for. Moving right along. The next thing I have to talk about today is a sock. The last two are gonna be socks. And let's see, this sock project is living in this cute little bag, travel knitting bag, that was sent to me by another former Fiber Share partner. Her Instagram name is @MistyMountainMaid. I'm gonna butcher her name if I try to say it, so I'm not even gonna try. And I apologize. I feel like a jerk. But she makes really cute hand sewn, hand embroidered little travel project bags that you can just kind of loop over your arm. And if you're the type of person who can walk and knit at the same time, kudos to you, because I am not that person. But I do love just throwing a little sock in here. And actually, I've been keeping a sock in this little cubby hole in my husband's truck. So I don't have to worry about picking up a project every time I leave the house. So this is perfect for that. But I am working on a sock for my niece. This, forewarning, this section is going to seem very Fiber Share heavy, which for whatever reason, it's just a coincidence. I think I have things from 3 different Fiber Share partners and with all of these socks. But so another one of my former Fiber Share partners, which, let me backtrack. If you're not familiar, Fiber Share, I came across it on Instagram. I think it is an Instagram based swap. So you pay like, I don't know, maybe it was like $7 or something like that, and you fill out a questionnaire, and you get matched with a partner on Instagram. And well, actually you get 2 partners. You get one that you send to and one that you receive from, so that they can work it out with an uneven number if they need to. But yeah, you fill out this questionnaire about what are your fiber preferences, you know, what kind of things you like in your day-to-day life and all that kind of stuff. And then you get this mystery box in the mail with all kinds of goodies. And I haven't done it in the last year or so. I kind of needed a break with our trip and everything. But I think I'm gonna sign up again, because I really enjoyed just getting, you know, yarn in the mail. I mean, and it's fun to shop for someone else. It's fun to receive. But yeah. So this pattern is by Nicole of Woolfield Studio. She was another one of my former Fiber Share partners. She sent to me as well. These are all things that I've received. And these are her Part of Your World socks, which have a little like mermaid scale type stitch along the front of the foot. And it's got an Eye of Partridge heel. Actually, you know what? Let me show you my finished socks. These are for my side. So I actually did the test knit for her last year when these came out. There, that's probably a little better to see. And both of these colorways, this one and the one that I'm working on, are from my own hand-dyed yarn. This purple and green one is called Mermaid Hair, and I really love this colorway. And I just thought, well, it's perfect with, you know, mermaid stitch, Part of Your World, mermaid hair. And these are my pair. But the reason that I'm knitting these is when we were back home, or back east, I should say, this is home now. When we were back east last fall sometime, maybe, I think it was pre-Thanksgiving, or well, yeah, it was pre-Christmas. My niece saw them, and I must have been done with them, because she tried them on and she immediately wanted some. She wanted those ones, actually, and I was like, no, they're for me. And but I will make you a pair. But also they were just way too big for her, because they're for an adult with a big size 9.5 foot, and she is a 10-year-old. I am a selfish knitter. I knit 95% of the time for myself. That being said, my nieces are both very knit worthy. They request things, they wear the things that I give them. I do not mind knitting for them at all. So last year, I started socks for her. I had wanted to give them to her last Christmas. And okay, yeah, so I knit. She also requested them to be like knee length socks, which, okay, fine. So I knit almost the whole full knee length sock for her, and I wanted her to try it on before I finished the toe. So at Thanksgiving, she tried it on. It was too small. I don't know how, but it was too small. I guess my gauge must have been super tight. So I gave her a different pair of socks for Christmas last year instead. Those were full length, knee length. So I finally got around to picking them back up again. She asked me about these all the time, so I feel really guilty. So yeah, they're not really shorties, but they're not really full length either. But I'm at the toe on this one now, and the measurements that I have for her foot were from last year, so I need to text my sister-in-law and make sure that this is still going to fit her, because I really don't want to knit these a third time. I don't like repeating patterns either, even though I knit dotted rays the second time. That's one that I can knit all the time, but I don't know. I'm just not a big pattern repeater for whatever reason. So I'm going to find out from her whether these will fit. And then I'd really like to get the second sock knit for her to have for Christmas this year, which is totally doable, especially if this is in the truck and every time we go somewhere I knit on them. So yeah, and as you can see, I am doing magic loop, which, as previously stated, is not my favorite way of knitting socks. And again, these are a departure because these are size 0 needles, 2mm needles. I'm trying to give it an honest try. Still not sold. But I don't think magic loop for me is great for the travel knitting, like in the car. But when I'm inside on the couch, I can sort of get a rhythm going. That's my problem with magic loop as a whole, is that it's not very rhythmic for me. Maybe again it's because I'm doing it in the car a lot of the times. So yeah, so these are part of your world socks in my own hand-dyed yarn. Oh, and this colorway is called Stardust, and it is a bare base that's been speckled with pinks and purples and blues, and it's probably one of my better sellers. And, or not probably, it most definitely is. I've actually just speckled some on mohair that's in, yes, it is in the shop right now, and they look gorgeous. I might need to make a sweater out of that. So yeah, so I really enjoy these. This is a really good pattern. Keeps you a little bit interested. It's not just plain vanilla socks, but the repeats are very memorizable words and stuff. All right, so last project. This one is living in a bag that was sent to me by Shannon of Woodsy and Wild. I'm sure y'all have seen her bags. They are absolutely gorgeous. And I told her I was into mermaid themed stuff, and she sent me this beautiful mermaid little sack. So another pattern by Nicole of Woolfield. The yarn that I'm going to show you was also sent to me by her. And this pattern is called the Vanilla Spice Socks, and it is really cute. So the little, like, let me get closer. So this faux cable seam travels down the back of the leg, and then I believe it goes onto the heel flap as well. So I'm at the point where I need to do the heel flap and gusset. I just need to sit down and do that one night. And the yarn that I'm knitting this in is from Yarn Ink, and it's in the colorway Taffy. It's really pretty. Oh, I don't know what was on there. Piece of cardboard. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I actually cast this one on in the airport when we were leaving for Scotland and got sidetracked. I don't know. There wasn't actually a ton of time for knitting. I mean, yeah, we were on the plane, but it was overnight, and I don't know. Travel stresses me out. So I did a little bit on this sock, got back, and it kind of languished for a while. And again, I kind of rotated between this and the other sock as far as travel knitting since then. But once I got back, I don't know, this one just piqued my interest as well again. And yeah, so I'm ready to do the heel flap. Now, since having finished those Shell Seeker socks though, and doing 2 at a time, I've decided I'm gonna go ahead, separate this ball into 2, so that I can go ahead and cast on the second one and get it to this point and go ahead and knit 2 at a time. What I did with those other socks was, since I like to use the 9-inch circulars, is I do a couple rows on one sock, a couple rows on the other. Usually, I mean, with the self-striping, it was easy to, okay, I'm going to finish this set of stripes, and then I'll go do the set of stripes on the second one. So I'd really like to do these concurrently as well. I just think it'll make the rest of it go by much quicker and much more enjoyably for me. So yeah, so I'm pretty pleased with those. I may keep them. I may gift them. Let's see. I don't know. I think they're gonna go in my sock drawer there. Yeah, so that is it pretty much. Well, that's it for today as far as my whips go. That's really what I've been kind of rotating through on a daily basis. Like I said, I have a couple other long-term projects that I'll talk about at a future date. I'd also in the future like to do a video about my hexapuff tapestry that I made a couple years ago. Since now that we're in a new house, I'm gonna need to hang it again, and that was a process, and it's something that I'd like to document and put up on YouTube. I also have enough hexapuffs where I could make a second wall hanging if I wanted to. I don't think that I want to, but I have a bunch of bags of hexapuffs hanging around. I may destash them. We'll see. So yeah, anyway, that was a random tangent. So that is it for whips for this week. I do have a very small acquisitions that I'll talk about, because, yeah, because yarn. So, last Thursday, today is Tuesday, last Thursday, I went up to Black Mountain Yarn Shop. Black Mountain is maybe 10-15 minutes outside of Asheville. It's a little bit closer to me than going into like Asheville's center, town center, city center. Black Mountain Yarn Shop, because they are the newest flagship store for Lobby Anime. What? I am so lucky to have access to that. I'm just floored that they have, you know, contracted with her. But I also just have to say right off the bat that they are probably one of my all-time favorite yarn shops. they just have amazing selection of indie dyers. Really, they just have an amazing selection of indie dyers there. A lot of things from Europe that you can't really find here in the States super easily. But then they also have a lot of really good staples. They have things like the Brooklyn Tweed and Quince & Co. and what's the other one? I don't know, I'm blanking now, but they've moved into a new retail space this year, and it's a really enjoyable space to be in. There's a lot of room to move around and tables and things to knit at. The owner is super friendly. She always, you know, has such nice things to say about knitwear, and always wants to talk to you about your projects and things. So yeah, so I just knew that I had to go up there on Thursday because Miss Amy herself was going to be at the shop. Oh, and that's where a year and a half ago, it was January, not this past January, but the January before, they had Stephen West there, and I got to meet him, and that was another amazing experience. He is the nicest person in the world. So is Amy. They're really generous with their time, and yeah, it was just a really great experience. And I know they've had other people through there. That's where I got the Farmer's Daughter. They had a trunk show with Farmer's Daughter. They've had Lavanya come through there. They're just an excellent yarn shop. They have all the really good kind of trendy things going on there. So anyway, of course I had to get some La Vie Anime. And here's the bag. I cannot recommend enough that you stop by this yarn shop if you are ever in the area. So I had a couple of colorways in mind that I knew that I wanted to snag if they had them there. I really love the Peach Mignon colorway. Naomi wanted Victorian Mauve. I don't know, there's a couple other, but they're escaping me right now. But anyway, I got there and it wasn't too picked over. I got there about an hour after they opened. But I just don't think that they had ordered any of the colors that we were interested in, like top of the list interested in, because I did want this color. And this is the peanut butter jelly colorway. And this is so yummy. Let me show you the other side too. They're just, it just like glows. The yarn is just so amazing. Her dye job is just amazing. So I got two of these, obviously, and I'm thinking I'd like to make, I was thinking when I went in there that 2 is enough to make a magpie tendency for my size. So if nothing else, I can make that. Totally fine with that. But also I could make the Marmetto tee. I don't, Caitlin Hunter, get on your names. I could make that. I could make it with this third one that I got, which is this Driftwood Graffiti. And that is really just a nice gray with some gold speckles on it. And actually together, they look really well together also. So yeah, so that would make a nice Maritimo tee, maybe. I don't know. I think I actually already have yarn picked up for that if I'm gonna make it. I'm still on the fence about that. They would make a really nice shawl together. I don't know. They're probably gonna stay in the stash for a little while I marinate on it and figure it out. I think I would just like socks out of this though, honestly. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, so I got those for me. I was trying not to go too crazy because again, staff is coming up towards the end of October. I have a few things on my shopping list for that. And then I did get one thing for Naomi. I'll just flash it really quick, even though I'm sure she'll show it off more on her podcast. But this is Le Littoral, and it's a really pretty kind of periwinkle, blurple, purpley blue. So yeah, so she's coming up next month for a bachelorette party and gonna stay here. So I'm putting together a little package for her. Even though neither one of us have done a swap, like a formal swap through, you know, whoever recently, we do tend to every few months trade things. I'll dye fiber, she'll send some hand spun, or, you know, whatever. So yeah, so that was Black Mountain Yarn Shop. I took kind of the scenic route home through the Lake Lure area. And I took some footage while I was out that day, and I'll try to kind of put it all together at the end of the video if you're interested in watching any of that. But yeah, I love going up there. I'm up there a couple times a year. So I have a local knitting group here where I live, but they only meet once a month, and it's very small, like 6 or 7 ladies, and most of them are older, and that's fine. I do not mind that at all. It's just Black Mountain, I know they have a couple of, you know, sit and knits a couple times a week, and I think there's a few more people that are closer to my age range. So I may start popping up there once or twice a month to go and sit and knit. Because again, we are still kind of new to this area, and it's hard to make friends when you are in your 30s. And yeah, so I don't know. It'll be just a good excuse to get me out of the house. Because again, I stay at home, I dye yarn, you know, that's my day. Anyway, didn't mean to get off on that tangent. Black Mountain, love anime, love it. All right, and I only have one other small, I say small, it's one skein, acquisition that I made recently. And I had been on Etsy. I don't even know how I stumbled across this. I think I was looking at somebody else's favorites and, you know, stumbled down the rabbit hole. But when I saw it, I had to have it. And this is another skein of self-striping yarn by Malia Made It. And this is in the colorway Acid Rainbow. And it is a self-striping yarn also. And so it stripes, you get different stripes of like the neon pink, the yellow, green, blue, and orange. I cannot wait to cast these on because I think it's gonna make really adorable socks. I'm debating going off on a tangent here about dyeing and things. I'll save it for later. But self-striping is not something that I can do. It's witchcraft to me. I mean, it involves math. I don't do math like that. Not for dyeing yarn. I will do math to alter a pattern, but not for yarn. So, like I said, when I stumbled across this, I had to have it. These colors are beautiful. I think, like I said, I just cannot wait to make some socks out of this. And I know I have a mini either that I have dyed or that is just in my stash that would work perfectly for heels, toes, and cuffs. I know I have a neon yellow. So yeah. And then, oh, she sent her little card with a bunch of stitch markers, which are always appreciated because you can never have too many stitch markers, in my opinion. Yeah, so that is everything I believe that I have to talk about today. Oh, I wanted to talk to you about advent calendars in the shop. Like I said, my plan is to keep shop content kind of light on the podcast, mostly because I just want to come here and blab to you about my knitting. My husband gets a glazed expression when I start going on too long about yarn and knitting. But yeah, so in the shop I do have advent calendars, and you may have noticed earlier with the hat that we were talking about, I dyed a gradient or fade last year, and that was intentional. So I'm not dyeing a fade this year, but I have decided to go with a theme, and that theme is crystals and gemstones, because who doesn't love pretty things like that? They will be like a cohesive looking collection. And so what comes with that is you get 24 20-gram mini skeins, 92 yards, and one 100-gram full skein with 463 yards on Christmas Day. They are all the same base, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. They will all be individually packaged, so you get a nice little package to open every day. There will be little goodies kind of scattered throughout. So yeah, I've been collecting little things throughout the year for these packages. I'm really loving the direction that they are headed in this year. And I just gotta say, from personal experience, like I said, I dyed calendars, but then I also ordered myself a calendar last year, and it's such a treat to just open up a little treat every day, a little something special for yourself, a nice little surprise. You don't know what you're getting. I guess you kind of have a clue with mine this year, but you still don't know what you're getting every day. So if it's something that you can afford, I don't know, I just think you should go for it. I think they're a great little experience in December. And if you're not sure what to make with them, I would recommend checking out the Amba O'Brien patterns, which are kind of, I feel like, what have really made these super popular. Her adventurer and adventurous wraps. I've seen the picture of the one that she's designed for this year, and it's really pretty also. Then there's also options of things like all the scrappy blanket projects that are out there, you know, a Cozy Memories or Granny Stripe blanket, Hexapuffs, you know, you could do scrappy socks. They're great for sticking around for heels, toes, and cuffs. Oh yeah, like I said, the hat was made for 5-gram minis. So if you do one of the 20-gram mini advent calendars, that is more than enough yarn to make your hat and a shawl, or hat and maybe even 2 pairs of socks. Definitely 2 pairs of socks. So yeah, if you're interested, go ahead and head on over to my Etsy shop and check that out. The only thing that I will say is I'm only dyeing a set number this year, and if all the pre-sales sell out, that's it. But if all the pre-sales don't sell, then I will just list what is left over, and when they're gone, they're gone. That's all I really have the brain space for this year. But they are 10% off through the month of August, and they will be free shipping again until they are entirely sold out. So yeah, that's the only shop stuff that I wanted to talk about today. And I can't think of anything else right now. But I am so glad that you stopped by, especially if you made it through this long. This whole podcasting thing is really scary, not gonna lie. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're interested. That way you can get notifications for whenever I publish. I am not entirely sure how often I will be doing full podcasts. I may throw some other little vlogs up. I don't know. This is all new to me. Still, you know, feeling my way through all of this. I'd like to maybe do it every week or every 2 weeks. We'll see how life pans out. But yeah, thank you so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye.